Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show, where, with the starting gun fired in the UK general election, we look at how the political process has dealt with some issues beyond Brexit over the last 3 years. With the entire political bandwidth absorbed by Brexit, some MPs at Westminster have still managed to pursue issues close to the hearts of the people. Today, we look at animal rights and, in particular, Lucy's Law, which has regulated the sale of puppies. TV vet Marc Abraham explains how the campaign developed across the parties to make a legislative change and why that change makes a difference.
We used every tool available and more to finally get this Lucy's Law over the line, which we achieved last year, and genuinely can't thank every parliamentarian, celebrity, member of the public enough for making that happen.
But first, your views on our political pundits' take on the upcoming general election campaign. This is how our famous panel greeted the starting gun of the election.
I predict an overall majority for the Conservatives, and the size of that majority is dependent on one binary question. Does he do a deal with the Brexit Party and Nigel Farage or not? If he does do a deal, big majority. If he doesn't, he'll scrape through.
Let's consider the Conservatives are going to lose their seats in Scotland. They're going to lose quite a lot of seats in the south to the Lib Dems. It will possibly include the Uxbridge constituency occupied by the Prime Minister.
You're not seriously forecasting the Prime Minister himself is in danger
yeah,
in this election?
I think he is. I think they're going to lose seats in London. They're going to lose seats in the southwest. They're going to lose seats in Scotland. The question then, whether the mythical working class vote, the Brexit vote, up in the northeast and in the Midlands, they're going to come out, abandon Labour and go on to the Conservatives. Let's see. It's a massive gamble.
I think at the end we'll get two positive results from the point of view of the SNP. We'll get a big increase in seats and we'll get a mandate for a new independence referendum. And
now for your responses to the programme. Terry says Peter Oborne is excellent. Never really saw much of him before, I must admit. His balance, insight and manner are refreshing. Perhaps a show of his own is coming. Perhaps it is, Terry. And then Donald Gillis says, hello, Alec. Looking forward to your insight in the political shambles that is Brexit. And James Grieve, on something of the same theme, says, great show again. We're on the Titanic and we need a lifeboat. Lynn Hardbattle said, Scotland's Christmas, referring to the Christmas election, the best present ever, get rid of Westminster. And finally, from Ruthie Dixon, no fan of the Prime Minister, she says, backdoor Boris. Boris Johnson is scared of Scotland and our people. He runs away every time he's in our country. But from the Brexit Christmas election, back to an issue which has been progressed this year despite the domination of the European debate. Cruelty to animals is an issue close to the hearts of MPs' constituents, and therefore is one of the relatively few issues which can fill even Westminster Hall, the subsidiary chamber of the House of Commons which specialises in backbench debates. Tasmina now charts the progress of Lucy's Law through the debates in Westminster Hall to the House of Lords to its legislative introduction in the House of Commons.
Now, the Westminster Parliament has been dissolved for the general election and the Northern Ireland Assembly remains in abeyance. This means that the only parliaments currently in operation in the United Kingdom are the National Assembly in Wales and the Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh. At Westminster, there are no members of Parliament, merely candidates being lined up by the various parties for individual constituencies. Cynics will say, of course, that the Westminster Parliament has actually been out of operation for some time, being totally deadlocked and absorbed by Brexit. That is certainly how it's been reported. However, it is not altogether the reality. In today's show, we feature a cross-party initiative which has brought forward remarkable legislative success on a subject which means a great deal to millions of people: cruelty to animals. This is how the then MPs across the parties broke through the fog of Brexit to jointly achieve stricter regulation of the sale of puppies, otherwise known as Lucy's Law, which will now come into effect next April.
Puppy smuggling at heart is an industry perpetrated by people motivated purely by money. They can make up to an incredible £35,000 per week illegally transporting puppies through our borders to be sold on unsuspecting dog lovers in the UK. And the root cause of puppy smuggling seems to indeed be the ease with which gangs can abuse the pet travel scheme that operates across Europe, otherwise known as PETS.
I thank the honourable gentleman for giving way, and he rightly identifies the large sums of money to be made by either individuals or organised crime. And don't they make a very fine cost-benefit calculation? And therefore, doesn't that reinforce the need put by a whole number of animal charities in order to actually raise the penalties for maltreating animals, and also confiscation of vehicles, so that this no longer is a paying business?
This is a matter for people in the street who care that the animal they bring into their homes to become a part of their family is an animal that has been cared for. I am in support of making life impossible for those flouting the rules with no regard for welfare, and that's why I'm here today, to support the honourable gentleman and everybody else for the very same reason.
As chair of the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Dog Welfare, APDOG, whose successful meetings on this subject and well-attended members' events, backed up by a very well-supported EDM and e-petition, securing over 100,000 signatures in just 13 days, and supported by the RSPCA, Kennel Club and almost every other welfare organisation in the UK, was also instrumental in the success of Lucy's Law, and I commend all of the work that's been done to bring this forward.
My Lords, I'm concerned that this legislation will not come into force until 2020, and I hear what the Minister has said about that. But I would like to press the Minister on why this cannot be done sooner. Christmas comes between now and April 2020, and many families may succumb to the pressure to provide a kitten or a puppy for Christmas. It would be much better if pet shops were not able to display kittens or puppies in the run-up to Christmas, thus avoiding unnecessary misery and suffering. A new pet for Christmas is often followed by possible abandonment in January.
This legislation is important because it puts into place Lucy's Law. It establishes a ban on the commercial third-party sales of puppies and kittens under 6 months of age in England. A ban that's been called for by committed campaigners and has overwhelming public support. This is a positive step forward in cracking down on unscrupulous breeders and tackling the scourge of puppy smuggling.
Alex spoke to one of the parliamentary organisers of the initiative, Lisa Cameron.
Lisa, welcome back to the Alex Salmond Show.
Thank you very much.
Now, this idea that Brexit is crowding out the parliamentary agenda, has that made it difficult for members of Parliament to represent the causes that they normally would do by parliamentary activity?
I think in many ways it has. However, there have been opportunities to take forward, given that the government has had to bring forward bills, I think, where there's cross-party engagement and consensus, and particularly in relation to animal welfare, on Lucy's Law, which is the ban on third-party puppy sales in pet shops and through puppy farmers. So
what you're saying is that because the government consumed by this epic parliamentary battle on Brexit, the other legislation has tended to be consensual, and that's provided an opportunity in a strange way, additional opportunity for members of Parliament to bring forward their own agenda.
Yeah, I think it has, and we've really capitalised on that. As I say, we had massive success with Lucy's Law. We also had Finn's Law brought through, which is to protect service dogs and to make sure that animals who are in service, if they're attacked, that there is a law where those who perpetrate that can be held responsible and accountable. So
animal welfare, both domestically and indeed internationally, has been one of your key campaigns as a campaigning member of Parliament. How does an individual MP go about getting that issue onto the agenda and making progress through the laws and initiatives that you've mentioned?
Yeah, well, I mean, I chair the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Dog Welfare, so that's been a massive boost in terms of making sure that we put through this agenda in Parliament and that we get the cross-party members to support it, that we need to do so. So I honestly think in Parliament over the past couple of years, although the agenda hasn't been as full as perhaps the government would have liked, we have been able to capitalise on that, and that's been fantastic for animal welfare right across the United Kingdom.
Well, Lisa Cameron, thank you so much for joining us again on the Alex Salmond Show, and tell us a little bit about the normal activities of parliamentarians continue despite Brexit.
Thank you very much.
So a parliamentary success. But what difference will Lucy's Law actually make? Who better to ask than the celebrated vet Marc Abraham? How does a working vet and television personality go about marshalling a cross-party campaign in the Palace of Westminster? Marc speaks to Alex.
And now I'm delighted to be joined by Marc Abraham, better known on his Twitter handle as Marc the Vet. Marc, welcome to the Alex Salmond Show.
Hi Alex, how you doing?
Now, you've just achieved a pretty significant campaigning success in Lucy's Law. What is it? Tell us that, and how did you manage that, when Brexit has completely dominated the political agenda?
Well, firstly, thanks for inviting me to be on your show. Lucy's Law is basically a ban on the sale of puppies and kittens by commercial dealers. So anyone who isn't the breeder selling the puppy or the kitten. So, for example, pet shops, people you meet at motorway service stations, anyone who delivers a puppy or a kitten to your house. So the person who hasn't actually bred the dog or cat is a third-party dealer. The reason this is important to ban is because third-party sellers, these dealers, enable and encourage puppy farming to happen behind closed doors. So it's a campaign against puppy farming. And our puppy farming happens in Wales, in Scotland, in Ireland, in Eastern Europe, in England. And puppy farming is the mass production of dogs purely for profit with no regard for their welfare.
But why is that a bad thing? I mean, why is the mass production of puppies to a willing audience, why is that essentially a bad thing, Marc?
It's a bad thing because the conditions that they're kept in are just horrific, because the public never see them, and that local authority inspectors may see them maybe once a year. So the rest of the year, it's a free-for-all. So they're kept as agricultural animals on straw or sawdust, in pens. They're not socialised, they're not vaccinated, they're not given any form of veterinary treatment, and they're basically bred to death. They're bred every season, which is twice a year for dogs, until they're infertile, and then they're destroyed. The puppies are removed too early, and then the puppies are sent around the country, sometimes overseas, to be sold without their mums by these dealers.
So couldn't that have been addressed just by better regulation and inspection?
Well, first of all, you'd have to have someone inspecting pretty much every day to ensure adequate welfare standards, which is obviously impossible. And it's just the process of selling via a third party is so detrimental to the welfare because they're removed too early, which affects the socialisation of the puppy. They're mixed in batches as they go around the country, so they transfer a disease because they're anxious and stressed. And the end product, you see, is when people go to a pet shop, which is usually regulated and licensed, is the fact that this little tiny ball of puppy is actually riddled with medical disease, surgical disease, and behavioural disease, and usually doesn't last more than 24 to 48 hours in the new home. So it affects human welfare too. In terms
what do you mean only lasts 24 to 48 hours? What is
because
that?
They usually...
what happens? They die or they're flung out?
They die.
What happens?
Yeah, the stress of going into their new home and the end of their mother's limited immunity, because they're usually 8 weeks of age, they're usually overcome with virus, typically parvovirus. They go downhill very quickly, and the new family who's excited and they've got new bedding and they've got toys and they've got new food is now either burying a pup in the garden or actually telling the vet to put it to sleep because it's in too much pain and can't be treated.
So which dog was Lucy then?
So Lucy was a Cavalier King Charles Spaniel who was rescued from a licensed puppy farm in Wales in a terrible state. She had epilepsy, dry eye, arthritis, separation anxiety, a cataract in her left eye. She was a broken dog and she was discarded because she couldn't breed anymore. She was useless, technically. She was adopted by a lovely lady called Lisa in the West Midlands and rehabilitated. And Lucy went on an incredible journey in her 3 years of living in freedom. She met celebrities, she attended dog shows, and she got a following on Facebook, which is Lucy the Rescue Cavalier, still a fantastic page, which sort of attracted animal lovers from all around the world. And when sadly she succumbed to all her illnesses in December 2016, we decided to honour the campaign to ban third-party commercial puppy and kitten dealers after her, call it Lucy's Law, and that really proved to be the game changer in the campaign.
Join us after the break, where Alex continues his interview with TV vet Marc Abraham. Welcome back. Alex is in conversation with TV vet Marc Abraham, who is also behind the campaign for Lucy's Law. Marc explains how it will make a difference to the lives of so many puppies when introduced next year.
Now, I remember when our family got our dog when I was a lad, and we got Shadow, Cairn Terrier, soft-haired Cairn, from a breeder in Falkirk. And he came back in the bus with me and my mum, with his head sticking out the shopping bag. He got back home, much to the consternation of my father, and peed in every corner of the living room, as I remember it. Is that not the traditional way that people got puppies into their house? And what on earth is wrong with that?
Absolutely, well, nothing's wrong with that. If you're going to the breeder, which is fine, and you're seeing the pup interacting with its mum and its litter mates in the place it was born, that's how you buy a puppy responsibly. The alternative is to go to a rescue shelter, which is also an appropriate way to get a dog. So what Lucy's Law is all about, really, is moving forward, is the only options available to anyone looking for a dog or a cat is to go directly to the breeder and see the puppy or a kitten interacting with its mum in the place it was born, great, or to consider rescue as well, which also have puppies and kittens there too. So it's removing the poorly bred, irresponsibly bred dogs and cats from the system.
Now, but I want to turn to the campaigning aspect of
Yes.
this, because I really am fascinated by how, with the support of a number of members of Parliament, you've managed to achieve this law in England and Wales, and coming in Scotland
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah.
So how did you manage that against the background of this all-consuming issue of Brexit, which has been dominating the parliamentary agenda? How did you go about securing that initiative?
Attrition, I think, is one word to sum it up.
You wore them down.
Yeah, I think we did. When I was growing up, I had no interest whatsoever in politics or history or law. I was collecting caterpillars, not even talking to other humans. I was the nerdiest, geekiest square ever. And I only cared about helping animals. Went to school, continued to be quite geeky. Went to Edinburgh University, discovered having a good time, let's say, in the wonderful city of Edinburgh. And then I became a vet, obviously, and I saw some puppies coming into my emergency clinic one night suffering from a disease called parvovirus. And I identified where they were from. They were from a dealer, buying them in from a licensed puppy farm. And that was the spark that ignited me. I then started doing awareness dog shows, because I was doing a lot of TV work at the time with Paul O'Grady and This Morning. So I had a media profile. I was doing dog shows called Pup Aid, which started in Brighton, where I live, and then I moved to London. Ricky Gervais, Rachel Riley, Sue Perkins, all these celebrities came on board to support raising the profile, but it wasn't enough. So I started to go to Westminster to find out if there was more I could do. I met some phenomenal parliamentarians, many SMPs, Paul Moynihan, Lisa Cameron, Martin Day, Tommy Shepherd, really influential for my campaign. And it was cross-party, so Caroline Lucas, Zach Goldsmith, Ross Thompson as well. Some really committed animal welfare-focused parliamentarians. And we just carried on campaigning with rallies and events and drop-ins and every parliamentary tool in the toolbox, which was accessible to campaigners.
And did you find that a concern for animal welfare kind of transcended their politics? Because you couldn't think of two more disparate MPs than the ones you've mentioned. The Ross Thompson,
sure.
A kind of Johnstonite Tory from Aberdeen, and Tommy Shepherd, a left-wing Scottish nationalist from Edinburgh. I mean, these are quite disparate people, but they were both shared a concern for animal welfare.
I couldn't agree more. It's been a phenomenal cross-party effort. And Labour as well, Rob Flillo, when he was in Westminster, was hugely, hugely influential. Sue Hayman on the shadow front bench. It was an amazing filter, actually, of taking away all the other stuff, if you like, and just focusing on something that people could unite around and push forward and finally get over the line. And it's thanks to Michael Gove, who was the minister responsible for passing Lucy's Law in England, Leslie Griffiths, obviously, in Wales, and Mary Goujon in the Scottish Parliament.
So when you identify your fellow travellers as MPs, so do you get them all together in a room and you say, look, get your politics out here. This is the animal welfare. This is Lucy's Law's meeting.
In a way, but the lobbying was so intense when we finally got it through. We had an e-petition. Actually, we did two. We lost our first one in 2014. We got the second 100,000 in 2018. It took 13 days. I mean, it was insane how popular this became. And it wasn't just popular in Westminster cross-party. It was popular with celebrities. It was popular with the public. So we kind of covered every single angle and almost made it unbearable not to pass Lucy's Law. And also it was important to provide evidence. One of the clinchers as well was setting up an APPG from scratch. So I'm the secretariat
of all-party parliamentary group.
Correct. And I set up the APPG for dog welfare, and we were able to invite in organisations that were trying to fight and sabotage and block what we were doing and kind of out them. So again, Lisa Cameron is the chair of the APPG, and many SNP members are part of that too. So as I said, we used every tool available and more to finally get this Lucy's Law over the line, which we achieved last year, and genuinely can't thank every parliamentarian, celebrity, member of the public enough for making that happen.
And I remember back in the day, when people used to do phone banks, and you'd go into the members' lobby of the House of Commons, and if there was an issue, for example, concerning Greenpeace, which I was a supporter of, then immediately you made a statement or a speech, the entire message board would light up with phone messages. But now, of course, your campaign will be largely in the social media as you tried to persuade the honourable members to come on to your side. So what was the kind of carry forward in the social media? I mean, you said to them, well, listen, we've got several 100,000 followers here waiting to see what you're going to say.
It's a really good point. I mean, yeah, you've got the sort of the three-dimensional meeting MPs in Westminster, and I must have been to Westminster over 300 times in the last 6 years, every day off from work. So I was still a practicing vet the whole time. But two-dimensionally on social media, incredibly powerful. To have a hashtag at the end, like Lucy's Law, very shareable, very memorable, I'm not one for entertaining trolls. I tend to mute or just ignore. I don't even block, because then they know you've wasted a millisecond of your life thinking about them.
Sensible advice to many celebrities, if I may say so.
Absolutely. But what our philosophy, and it wasn't just me doing it, it was a small coalition of campaigners, all doing it in our spare time, was to pour praise on the good parliamentarians, and I mean good by the ones who supported. And I think if you're getting retweeted and shared by mine, PupAid, Carryad, all these accounts, plus my all-party parliamentary group for dog welfare, other MPs will see that and they want to be a part of it. And we always made Lucy's Law completely inclusive, whether you were working in Westminster or living in Australia. Everyone was welcome to be a part of Lucy's Law. So it became a movement that we had very cool celebrities, relevant celebrities, Ricky Gervais and Brian May and Rachel Riley. So it became this sort of group on so many different levels, influencing and being attractive to so many different demographics, that I think it became quite hard not to want to be a part of. And everyone was welcome. So it just escalated and just got bigger and bigger and more powerful, and was a phenomenal project really to lead. And
so you've got Lucy's Law,
going
through the Statute Book of Westminster. It's in the programme for government for the Scottish Parliament, so that's it secures it there. So what's next for campaigning? Well, two things actually. Tell me, firstly, how we will be able to know that Lucy's Law is being effective. What the difference it will make, and secondly, what's next?
I think we'll know what a difference it makes, because there'll just be a reduction in puppies entering veterinary surgeries with problems. I think we'll also have a reduction in dogs with social problems and behavioural problems, because they've been well adjusted and properly socialised as puppies, and that goes for kittens too. We're also, in terms of raising awareness about Lucy's Law, I'm working with DEFRA now to, on an awareness campaign that will come out in the spring, because it's already in law, but it hasn't been, activated yet, I suppose, until the 6th of April. So there's going to be a huge awareness campaign around that to make sure that when the law comes in, it works, which is obviously very important and people know about it. And next for me is there's many other animal welfare campaigns I'm involved with, and it's a privilege and an honour really to help other campaigns, either to give advice or to represent them, or just to be on the phone for an hour and just giving some tips on what to do next.
And you're going to encapsulate this in a book, I understand?
It's funny you should say that. But yeah, I am writing a book which is all about Lucy's Law, and it'll be full of campaigning tips as well. But it'll be how we did it, from having no resources, no background in law, no background in politics, to changing the law in 3 different countries, and effectively securing the best start in life for the UK's dogs and cats, not just now, but well into the future.
Well, congratulations to you. And in order to toast your success, I'm able to present you with the Alex Salmond Quake. Now, the doug's quite simple. You whiskey in the quake. There's a graduate of Edinburgh University. You'll know what I'm talking about. Only Scotch. Nothing else works. And then you pass it around all your animal welfare campaigners.
And will you accept an official Lucy's Law campaign rosette?
Oh, thank you. This is one of the best rosettes I've ever had.
There you go. Cross-party, and it represents animal welfare, positive change for animals, and one of the most important pieces of legislation this country's ever seen.
I'll wear it with pride. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone following UK politics over the last 3 years would be forgiven for believing it has been the ultimate one-trick pony. Successive Brexit deadlines, knife-edge parliamentary votes, the fall of 2 prime ministers, the unlawful proroguing of Parliament, and finally, the first winter election since February 1974. The astonishing twists and turns of the Brexit melodrama have consumed the papers and dominated online and TV coverage. However, all is not as it seems. Today's show demonstrates that beyond the smoke of the Brexit battlefield, there has been a remarkably successful campaign to enlist cross-party support to make progress on the rights of animals. It may not be the issue which tops any party's manifesto, but it is one which matters to many millions of people. The story of Lucy's Law shows that there is political life beyond Brexit. Next week, we move from a country entering a general election campaign to a country just finishing one. How will the new Spanish government tackle the political crisis in Catalonia? Join us to find out. But until then, from Alex and I and all at the show is goodbye for now, and we hope to see you then.